in the original Justice League, I was younger and maybe I just didn't understand it. But the way I understood it in the original Justice League was because this frustrated me. In this scene, Batman has no plan for if Superman comes out like Pet Sematary style, right?
Yeah.
Which he should. He would.
Yep.
And so when I watched the original cut, my understanding was, Lois Lane was his plan. If things go south, he's going to bring Lois Lane in, right?
It was, wasn't it?
No, that's what that scene explains. Because this scene explains Martha Kent getting out in the world.
No.
This scene explains why Lois Lane is outside when she sees Superman come back to life.
Maybe I am completely insane, but I could have sworn in the original Batman told Alfred to get her. I could have sworn there was some mention.
Maybe.
Maybe. I just forgot the scene. He may have, but I just don't remember it. If it did happen. I don't know.
I will say,
that would have been totally fine too.
That was a bigger problem with this movie. He didn't have a plan in this movie.
Yeah, that frustrated me.
He was just making decisions based off of his guilt. He was like, "You just do it." Whatever,
which Batman wouldn't do.
Yeah, Batman would never do that. Batman's so calculated, dude. Oh.
Exactly. So I thought that was a problem with this movie. He had no plan. I like the original cut with that more. Pretty sure he had Lois as a backup, but maybe I'm wrong.
Okay.
I don't know.
I do want to bring up though that this movie came about because of like Zack Snyder's vision, right? Like, and the director's vision often has these kind of things that are like, they don't really contribute to the movie, and that's why they get cut out of the theatrical cut, right? And so that's why these things are in here. You know what I mean? And it's cool to see them, but that doesn't make them add to the movie. You know what I mean?
I suppose, but I mean, I'd be hard pressed to find someone that thought the original was better than the Snyder cut.
I'm not saying that the original was better. I'm just saying that there are things in here that should be cut. There should be things that there are
some things in here that should be cut.
I agree.
Yeah. There are some things in here that should be cut. I do agree.
I'm not saying it should be the original cut.
Okay.
I'm just saying that like for a theatrical cut, this would not pass the ball.
Yes, they could have taken a half hour off this movie.
Yeah.
Probably. 20 minutes.
I don't know if you guys care about this that much, but I do want to talk about the Lois Lane scenes. I made a comment on how I didn't enjoy them. And Ryan, you said a lot of them taken out. And I agree. Mm-hmm. I totally agree with that. But in two of them, I think, which impacts the scene with Martian Manhunter being Martha Kent.
Okay.
The song for Man of Steel, it's changed. It's slowed down and it's changed a bit. But the song, What Are You Going to Do When You're Not Saving the World, is played very lightly in the background of two of the Lois Lane scenes when she's kind of sitting around, not necessarily sulking, but she's like dealing with.
She's kind of lost, yeah, of course.
Clark not being there, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the name of that song, even though people might not know it, is what drives that Martian Manhunter scene to have a point, right? Because Lois Lane is a reporter in Man of Steel, like puts herself in danger for the story, right? Mm-hmm. To get to write something for the Daily Planet. And she's left that behind now that Clark's dead, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that theme, it's like, whether knowing the title begs a question, what is she doing with her life, right? Where is this going? And that's what makes the Martian Manhunter scene have an impact to me. We don't have to keep talking about that scene, but that's the question. What is she going to do?
Can I say something about that?
Yeah.
And I think that's a good point. And it gives a little it gives an added value to watching those scenes if you know the music, right?
Yeah.
But I think that the music in this movie is one of the best parts of it. I think they did a really good job with the score. I don't know how you feel about that.
Oh my gosh. I'll talk about that in a second. You can finish your thought if you have.
That's all. I mean, that's all I was going to say. In response to Cameron right there. Yeah.
Okay. So, sorry, do you want to say something? Go ahead.
Well, we can talk about the score first, but I wanted to talk about Green Lantern at some point.
Okay. Yeah. We'll talk about it in a second. I want to.
The score first,
Yeah. So.
I still have a list of things I want to go over. Okay, guys.
We'll try to. We're gonna. Okay. We'll.
This will be a longer podcast, I think. Or we can split up into two parts. We could split it up into two parts, but.
No, I mean it's okay. We can run through. I can always split it up myself between two parts if I want. If I want to do that. But talking about first, I'm just gonna say Lois Lane scenes. I'm gonna be honest. I'm trying to think of a comparison in Marvel because it's the easiest thing to do with these superhero movies. Mm-hmm. To me, it's like if you told me that I had to watch Jane after, let's say, if Thor were to die, and I had to sit there and watch Jane figure out where to go in life for 4 different scenes.
I feel like Pepper Potts is a better example.
Fine. We'll use Pepper Potts. Okay, are we gonna sit here in the next movie in Marvel and watch Pepper Potts 4 different times in the movie, sitting around without Tony, figuring out what to do? No, we'll get one scene about that. We'll probably get a scene, maybe not. I'd be okay with one scene about that. I think Lois Lane's one scene, going to Superman's whatever monument, grave, whatever you want to call it, memorial, was good. With her mourning him, trying to move on, I think that was good. Having 3 or 4 different scenes of her trying to get over it, I don't really think was necessary because she's not an impactful enough character in the Justice League. Right, I think.
Oh, you think she's not impactful enough? Oh, okay.
No. If you're going to a smaller,
but Martian Manhunter, he's impactful enough, right?
This is different. If you're going to a smaller scope, yeah, you can jump in. If there's a smaller scope movie, I understand this.
From the way I understand it, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
Martian Manhunter is a cool fan service thing to do, and even though he doesn't have impact on the movie, it's cool to see him.
Yes, and it sets up for the future.
Lois Lane doesn't have an impact, but it doesn't bring him anything to see her in the movie. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like as a fan of Man of Steel, of Man of Steel, it does bring me something to see her in the movie, because I think there's a difference when you're talking about, like the significant others in Marvel. I'm not saying they need to keep all those scenes, right? I think that they definitely should cut some of those out. But it was kind of cool to see some of those scenes with her, like the one where Martha Kent goes to talk with her. But I think that the comparison with Marvel is a little bit weird because Marvel movies have such a different tone, right?
No, I don't disagree.
And Man of Steel, like, you kind of get to know Lois more intimately than you get to know like Pepper Potts or
Are you serious?
Or Jane in like one of the Marvel
movies. They have a decent amount of Pepper Potts in the Iron Man movies.
Yeah, but you don't really but those movies are like more lighthearted and like, peppy and stuff, right?
Sure. I'm not trying to get I mean, obviously the tone's more dark in the DC universe in general, like I would say, without a doubt. And I'm not trying to compare like overall tone. I'm not trying to be super specific. My only point is you don't need without.
No, I agree that you don't need all those scenes. But for me, it does provide something to see a couple of those scenes in there. It does add something for me.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. I think. Also, wait. I don't want to get this wrong. Wasn't she pregnant?
Yeah.
I
think she was.
Okay.
Which is irrelevant. It's pretty irrelevant, but
it's pretty irrelevant. But man, they just threw that in there. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess she's just pregnant. That's kind of big news. Superman 2.0, that's,
yeah, dude,
I mean? Man,
the boys, coming out here with Homelander.
Oh, we need. Man, that made me sad. That show, Connor.
Okay.
Do you have anything to say, Cameron? You want to say something about this? What is there comic related? What do you want to say about this?
We need to talk about this at some point.
Okay.
But I just want to touch on this.
Yeah, touch about it.
You talking about Lois being pregnant, right?
Mm-hmm.
That to me ties into the Injustice universe, and I don't know how much you guys know about that. But okay, so pretty much, Lois is pregnant, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Joker convinces he uses some kind of trickery and makes Superman see Lois as Doomsday, right? So he kills Lois and the child unknowingly, right? And that just is too much for him, and he cracks, right?
Yeah.
And he just creates like a regime, and he's like, I'm gonna fix the world. And I know that's not what happens in that nightmare scene that Batman has, but you bringing up her being pregnant immediately makes me equate that nightmare scene, which might be like a vision of the future kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like the Injustice universe, especially knowing that Lois is dead from the dialogue between Batman and the Joker.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I wanted to...
I do like that storyline, though, personally.
The
Injustice one or the Nightmare?
The Injustice story.
Yeah. So we can talk about this for us. Like, I kind of want to talk about this. Is that okay if we talk about this for a couple minutes here?
When you say this, do you mean like where they could
This
go with
whole
the universe?
yes, the whole nightmare,
Okay.
the injustice thing, the whole nightmare. We can.
I feel like we should talk about this after we talk about a couple of other things.
Okay.
Like, I feel like we should save
Fine.
that kind of for the end. I don't know.
That's okay. We can hold off on it for now.
Yeah.
But
well, I just think that we should
I
talk
think we
about
talked about
Superman, the Superman coming back scene. I feel like we should.
yeah. But if we're gonna do this, then let me talk about the score for a second. The music.
Okay, yeah.
All right. Cool.
Because for me, the music was good for the most part. I did.
Are you gonna bring up the Wonder Woman theme?
Some of it was they all walk out together. It'd be like some rock and roll, like I don't know. It's just like kind of like a little bit. Cheesy's the wrong word, but you know what I mean.
No, yes,
like,
no. Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt. But you know when like they're flying to the final battle, and then there's that scene where Wonder Woman like draws her sword and she looks all ferocious, and then like Batman throws Aquaman his like trident, and then like look each other like, and then Cyborg's like turning on his guns and he like looks at the camera all intimidating. Like what are they actually doing, dude? Like that's like what are they actually doing? Like are they supposed to be getting ready? Is that Wonder Woman's like practicing drawing her sword and looking scary? Like that's purely there for the effect of like having a cool shot. And I was just laughing the entire time in that scene. I don't know.
And that bothers me with this and with what happened in some more like Endgame. Like they did that in that too. But like that's a little weird. But anyway, the music, like I said, like they just had some funny like they're all like intimidating, the rock and like just crashes in. It's just funny. And the Wonder Woman theme, don't even get me started on this Wonder Woman theme. Okay, listen, I'll tell you, this is one big joke with me and my friends. Okay, this comes up and like what an absolutely terrible theme. What is she from? Is she from Egypt? Is she from like I don't understand. Is she from the pyramids? Like
dude, were you watching this with subtitles on?
Yeah.
It says ancient lamentation music.
Yeah, I was like, what is this? And my like seriously, it sounds like some ancient Egyptian style music here, and she's not like what is that? Like what is that? I don't even understand. It was so, and it just cut through the scene, and it was.
All right, you're making us look like jokes when we said we like the music, okay?
And it was never. It was.
The music was good.
It was never all. You can talk about the rest of the music in a second, but it was never worse in the end. It got worse as the movie went on. We get to the point, the final battle. She comes flying in. At this point, I have a bet with my friends. I'm like, guys, are they going to have this music again? No way they do it again. And it comes in. She comes flying in with her sword. It's so, it is so over the top. Such a weird choice.
We should make that our podcast intro music and see how long it takes us to get copyright strike.
Oh my gosh. Probably a while. They don't want to admit that was theirs. I'll tell you that. Okay. Man, what do
you want to say, brother? I know you want to say something.
Well, for me, music makes a movie probably 50% of the time, right? Like that's for Man of Steel and like Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is my favorite movies. Fantastic music, right? That sells it. Mm-hmm. And in this movie, the music was probably one of the best things for me, right? Minus the Wonder Woman theme. The Wonder Woman theme was over the top and overused. But she does get like a theme. I don't remember if it's in the original Justice League or in Wonder Woman. But
the one that's like... Yeah,
I would have preferred to see that used and just much less than introduce this whole new song. But besides that, there were a couple other times where I was like, this is a bit weird.
Yeah. I didn't like some of the rock type of music they used.
The rock was weird.
But the soft themes that they had in there, I really liked those soft themes, you know?
Like when I brought up the what are you going to do when you're not saving the world with Lois, like that's not the best example. But like those underlying themes, I really enjoyed.
For me, I was making fun of the rock and roll, but in all honesty, like I thought that I just think it's kind of cool because it gets you a little hyped up. Okay, it provides, I don't know, so I don't mind.
Okay, that, it gets you a little hyped up.
I'm just gonna be honest, but what was I gonna say? Yes, for me, before we move on from the music, I couldn't agree more with Cameron because in the movie, what makes Christopher Nolan movies so great? I love Christopher Nolan movies. What makes them so great? The music. Okay, listen, the music is spectacular. It can't be beat in my opinion. But for me, the issue I had with the music in this movie is they tried to, in the middle of fights, in the middle of scenes, switch between themes of multiple different superheroes mid-fight, give them their own personal theme, that Wonder Woman theme, obviously, but almost all of them had their own theme when they come into like, they have their like one take with like them, like Batman's fighting, like the Flash doing his thing. It wasn't as noticeable with them, but like it definitely was like they definitely switched the music up based on the hero that was fighting on screen. And I don't know if you need to do that. And maybe like I can look back at other superhero movies and I could eat my own words and I could be totally wrong, but I feel like they don't really need to do that. They change the theme for the superhero mid fight every time. Like that was a constant.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have anything else.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Connor? Because I was going to say, but if you have something, go ahead.
No. I mean, I feel like I've said what I want to say about the music, so you can go ahead and say what you want to say.
So I agree. They switched it up a bit too much, Ryan. I think you're right in that aspect. And then we've been relating a lot to Marvel, which isn't easy in some situations. But what Marvel does a good job with their music is they give, like the Avengers have a theme, right?
Yes.
And Thor has a theme. And occasionally they'll play the Avengers theme and they'll cut out certain things, or they'll put Thor's theme under it, just much, much lighter when Thor's doing something. And I think that the issue for this was they didn't establish a theme for the team, right? Everyone had their own individual song. But outside of that, it was just kind of...
Yeah, I would have liked to see like a more Justice League theme, like something that really hooks you in, that's catchy, that's like, Justice League,
Yeah. So I agree. I think I switched up too much. I think the fix for that was find a Justice League theme somewhere, right? And they just didn't, which is kind of a letdown. So I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we kind of agree, or at least understand what we're trying to say. Yeah, I do think so.
Is it okay if I bring up one quick scene that happened towards the beginning of the movie?
Go ahead.
Connor, no, it's not. Yeah, no.
I just want to bring up the scene where we get introduced to Wonder Woman, where she saves those children from the terrorists.
Oh
right?
my gosh, this is a problem I have with the movie. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So, I did think it was super cool to see Wonder Woman in action against, like actual people, not like the parademons. I thought that was pretty cool to see her like, dodging, getting all those bullets and stuff.
Suppose.
But there were a couple things about this scene that were just made me like, huh? Like what?
Mm-hmm.
Like, first of all, the first thing that I was like, okay, what was another dialogue thing where she defeats all the dudes and she like throws the bomb up in the air, and then there's still the one main bad guy left, and then she goes and she like stops them all, like stops them killing all the children with her little gauntlets or whatever. And
how fast is she?
And she's very fast. She's very fast. Like Superman's very fast too. They're not like Flash, but
yeah, the ranking is Flash is crazy fast. He breaks speed of light. Superman can break the sound barrier, and then Wonder Woman is right up there next to Superman. She's obviously not as fast, but she's still crazy fast.
Is she able? Do you know if she's able to break the sound barrier? Just out of curiosity.
I am not. I'm certain there are some instances where she can.
Okay.
But I'm not certain. Apparently, she can move faster than bullets, which is cool.
Yeah.
Anyways, my point is that after she does that, the bad guy's like, I don't believe it, or something like that. Which, first of all, you literally just saw her take out all your guys and like take your bomb out there, like, and you can't believe that she just did that. Second of all, she's like, believe it. Like,
yes, yeah. But that goes with the dialogue that you were talking about.
Yeah, that goes with the dialogue, and that's not her fault as an actress. Like, just the fact that she has to say that line. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's fair. Yeah.
And then she does her like thing like this and like blows them out the window, and like for some reason she decides to compromise the integrity of the building with these children she's trying to save instead of taking him out like a normal person.
Yeah.
And then she's like, it's okay, everybody get up. Okay. And this one girl doesn't get up, and everybody like surrounds this one girl. And she's like, are you okay, sweetie? And she's like, can I be like you one day? Like they all just kind of swarm around her. Like it's like this, like they all know she's going to say something.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's like, you can be whatever you want. Which I get, they're trying to push that messaging for like little girls and stuff, right? That's cool and whatever. but it just feels like so unnatural and so staged.
The
It
problem-
feels so staged, dude. Oh my god.
Problem is, it feels so manufactured, and that's
Yeah.
And I'm not going to touch on too much what you said because I agree with a lot of it. But there's really only one thing I wanted to add. And you should go back and rewatch this if you don't remember it. But just watch Wonder Woman's movement in this scene, and watch it in some parts of the movie. She reminds me of like a chess piece. She's like sliding across the floor.
Okay, that's how a lot of them move
Like,
sometimes, and
it
a
was
lot of the
wrong.
action scenes. Like Batman sometimes moves like that too.
It was really weird. She's like sliding. It just looked really fake. I don't know. I didn't like the movement. It just didn't look good to me. And that was a problem that like I saw and I had kind of with that. So I don't know if.
What do you think, bro?
Yeah. I don't know
Well, I agree. Notably in that scene, it was
Yes.
really odd. But for overall, that scene to me was her introduction into this movie, right? Like
Mhm.
there seemed no other point than to introduce her in the movie
Yeah,
before
which is
she's
fine.
like dusting off a statue, right? And that's
Mhm.
fine. But like, I also there's a couple things. Who are these guys, right? Because the way they talked, it's like it's a big organization and not just like a couple bombers. And these guys aren't like, they set a 1 minute timer. They're not planning on getting out, right? So there's no way it's just these like 10 dudes or whatever. And second, about her sliding around, I remember when I first watched Batman vs Superman, I was like, her shin guards are really weird. They come up like right above her knees. And then watching the Wonder Woman movie, she like that's the reason she slides around so much, is because she can't. She doesn't have to worry about the friction on her legs because the shin guards cover up above her knees, so she can just kind of slide around as she wants. And it is a weird movement, but it's also not something you expect when you're fighting against, right? It's kind of unpredictable.
Yeah. It just looks strange as if you were to
Well,
me.
I think that a lot of the action sequences in this film, they maybe didn't have quite the budget they wanted to make it look as polished as they wanted by the end.
Man, that's unfortunate.
Because, I mean, this movie already costs a lot of money to make, and there's so much CGI that, like, I mean,
yeah.
I feel like they maybe just could have done a little bit better with a little bit more money. I mean, not that they need more money, but you know what I mean.
Yes, I also think that nowadays, and this is just a personal opinion, but generally when there's like the more you limit CGI, I think the better your film's gonna turn out to be. A lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times.
Yeah.
Unless you're super ultra high budget, like in just my opinion, like the more you can limit CGI, I think generally the better.
Yeah.
But before we move on from the scene, I just want to say, like, also, like, what a weird, out of place decision for Wonder Woman. You're right, to like blow up the entire side of the building to kill this guy. Isn't she supposed to be like the Captain America of this universe? Like, what was that?
Yeah.
Like, could you think of Captain America just busting open the whole side of a building just to kill someone?
Yeah, he would be like
in front of all of his kids. In front of all his kids, yeah. No, he would never have done that. So that just felt out of place to me, my opinion.
Also, when she does that, what happens to the guy? Right, his hat falls down.
He's dead, I guess.
He's just,
right?
But what happened to his body? Just like fly super far away?
But she like incinerated him. I don't know.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense that she would like incinerate him, right? Because everyone else is just blown away. It's like a big impact. It's not like flames. Like body kind of disappears, and that bothered me. I don't know why, but it did.
Yeah. I couldn't tell you. But we can move on from that scene. I don't know if you guys have something else you wanted to jump to after this.
Can we?
Well,
okay, you go, bro.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know how much input you guys will have on this, but I want to talk about the Green Lanterns in this movie, right?
Okay, sure.
So the way Green Lanterns work, if you guys don't know or viewers don't know, is there is a sector of space which Green Lanterns are assigned to, right? So it's like the Green Lantern of Earth would also be like the Green Lantern of Mars and the Green Lantern of Jupiter, right? So it's kind of like a solar system is how they work, the way I understand it. That might not be totally accurate, but that's the way I get it, right? And so when they do the flashback, they talk about Guardians from Space, and they show a Green Lantern, right? And the Green Lantern dies. When a Green Lantern dies, his ring finds someone else who's fitting, and that person becomes the new Green Lantern of that sector. And so because we only saw one Green Lantern, to me, I'm saying, okay, that's the Green Lantern of this sector. So why in the thousands of years did another Green Lantern not show up? That I know, I understand for the sake of the movie, probably budget, and it just didn't really fit with the theme of the movie. But why wasn't there one in the past thousands of years?
Or maybe there is one.
Okay, but then why hasn't he showed up at any point? Or why hasn't he or she showed up at any point?
That I feel like there's an easy answer to that, and unfortunately, it's not related to like the universe, and that's what's annoying. Is I read, and this maybe isn't true, but Snyder said this, and he said, I just remember him saying that he wanted Green Lantern to be in the end of this movie, and they wouldn't let him. And I feel like for some reason, these executives that were letting them make this movie refused to let them have Green Lantern, be in these movies ever since the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie. They, for some reason, have just tried to steer clear as far as possible from anything Green Lantern. Like, the fact that they even mentioned Green Lantern surprised me. And it was a pleasant surprise because I think Green Lantern's so cool. And it'd be really cool to have Green Lantern and, all the Green Lanterns and, that whole universe thing be in, this universe, right? Bless you, Connor. But
Thank you.
I just, it's annoying. But I think that's why they just refuse to let them,
I wonder if they wanted to shy away from that because of how big of a failure the most recent Green Lantern movie was with Ryan Reynolds.
We need to review that sometime. Was it really that bad to you?
I actually saw it when I was a kid and didn't understand the level and quality of movies, so I couldn't tell you. So,
okay.
I understand. I understand why he didn't show up, right? And Connor, you're right. There could be another one, and we just didn't get to see him in the movie, right?
He's neglecting his duty, I'll tell you that.
But what bothered me about it was in not the nightmare scene at the end, but I think Batman has another quick nightmare about no, not Cyborg when he but right before they bring Superman back to life, he has that little flash to Superman, to Wonder Woman having her arms and legs cut off and being strapped down somewhere, and Superman holding a skeleton, right?
Yeah.
And at the final scene of that vision or whatever is Superman sitting there with Batman's head in his hands, right? Or he at least the mask. But on that zooming in, laying on the ground is a Green Lantern. And I don't know for certain, but to
me, was that in this movie or was that in the original Justice League?
I don't know. I think it was just this movie, right? I think it was just the movie.
When was this?
This was right before they bring back Superman, right? Right before when
when Cyborg had the vision. I remember.
Says, no, Flash hears go.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
but my issue with the Green Lantern that we see looks like Kilowog, who is the pink big guy in the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern. I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah.
But that's what it looks like to me, right?
Yeah.
And it's just first of all, Earth isn't part of his sector of space, right? Second of all, if he's going to show up at this point, in sometime in the future, why hasn't there been one in between that time? And I know the real answer, but
yes,
it just doesn't make sense.
Yes.
Is what
yeah. I mean, and that's generally what happens, unfortunately, when you have these real world, I guess you could say issues, but qualms with involving Green Lantern in these movies. It's not gonna make sense when you're looking at the actual plot of the movie, right? It's gonna be some random interruptions or lack of Green Lantern presence. It doesn't make sense, and you're not gonna get an explanation because their explanation is he's just not there because he's not there because we refuse to put him in the movie. So you're not really gonna get an actual explanation for it, which is annoying, right? But it's kind of just, I guess it's the way it has to be, or the way it is. But Connor,
been fans it might have been Connor, how you see Martian Manhunter in some of the scenes. It might have been like that if he had showed up in the movie. And so there's a ton of stuff in reality playing into it. But I guess as a superhero lover, I would have liked to see more Green Lantern presence.
Yeah. Connor, did you have anything to say before we move from this topic?
Well, I think we can talk more about this when when we kind of wrap it up and talk about what the plans for this universe could have been, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
But I was wondering if we could just talk about the Superman coming back scene before we move on to the
Yeah.
end.
Sure.
I feel like when we talked a little bit how there's like a little bit of conflict about should they bring Superman back or whatever and whatnot, and then they decide, oh yeah, let's do it, and so they do it because they think like they're going to need his help to beat Steppenwolf, right? So okay, there's a couple things that I have to say. Number one is I do not like this idea fundamentally, right? I don't like the idea of bringing such a major character back to life.
They never should have killed him though. So
yeah, okay, that's fair. But they made the decision to kill him, and when they killed him in Batman versus Superman, I'm like, I know he's gonna come back to life. This death means nothing to me when I'm watching that. No.
That was okay.
Which,
go ahead. Yeah, keep going. You can go ahead. Sorry.
And that's another problem I have kind of with Infinity War too, is I felt no emotion when everybody was turning into a dust in Infinity War, because I'm like, they're gonna come back like in the next movie, you know. I don't know. That's besides the point. The second thing is when they bring Superman back to life. I mean, I guess I can kind of get behind him like not having his memories, but like, why is he just like this silent machine that decides to attack them, you know? And I get you can say like, oh, Cyborg shot at him, but it's like, well, that's only because his system, I guess, sensed danger for some reason. That's the first we've heard of that, and that's convenient to make it seem like Superman didn't attack them, you know?
Well, I mean, you can see, I think we get to see briefly through Superman's eyes, right? And like, it was like he could like see, like, didn't they look like monsters or something, kind of? They
like their heart
skeletons. It looked like they're skeletons, right? You could see, like, so it just looked weird. Anyway, but I mean, he didn't have any memory, and a guy just shot at him. So I mean, like, if you have no memory and a guy just shot at you, like, what are you gonna? And they're all like have brandishing weapons at you. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's not that crazy.
I guess, but why did he shoot at him though? Like, why does he have a suit that does that? That just automatically shoots for him? Like, doesn't he know?
That's part of the apocalyptic tech. It's self-sustaining. It's made to survive, and that's just like one of the unfortunate
side effects
things that happened.
I guess it just felt like a very convenient way for them to start that conflict. Like, oh no, my suit is actually sensing danger. Oh well, it's shot.
Yeah. And I think, brother, the reason he's so silent is because it's kind of like he's in like a primitive state, which I don't know if that's a thing for Kryptonians, but that's the way I understand it, at least. Like, he's been brought back and he just lacks what makes people human. He lacks a soul, kind of.
I guess. But then suddenly, but then he like slowly regains it back just because of time or because of Lois. I don't know.
Yeah, and I wanted to correlate it to, and I don't know if anyone has actually watched Arrow, but it was something like that in the show where they have like, I think it was the Lazarus Pit. I think that's what it was. Yeah. And they would and they'd come back to life, but they'd have like no actual like they would just be like the animalistic, like kind of primal fighting, like, you know, you just when they initially came back, like it was like this, like it wasn't like they had any rational thought going on and like actual memories of their like life before they had died. Right. So that's kind of how I thought of it. So I didn't have too much of an issue with that. But
did you ever see Batman Under the Red Hood? Did you ever see that?
This is very coinciding with what I have to say about the closing scenes.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I'm gonna back up then.
But talking about this scene, you know, I like this. This is one of my favorite scenes in the original. Like, if I had to pick one of my favorite scenes in the original, it might have been this one. I
do like this one too.
Like, it was just cool because I like, and it's part of the reason I like The Boys. Connor knows this show that we've watched, but I like kind of the it's not, you don't see it very often. Someone as powerful as Superman, you don't see them being bad or evil or doing something, you know, against the hero grain very often. So I just think it's neat to see, even for a brief moment, something like that. You know, it's definitely different. And it was cool to see, like, all right, you know, he can take on all these guys without really breaking much of a sweat. I mean, Wonder Woman could fend them off for like a little bit, but really not very long at all. So I thought that was neat. It was just cool to see that. And I liked Lois, I knew she was going to show up. It's good to have her show up. She, if anyone's going to make him remember who he is, it was her, the classic.
Oh, also Batman surviving
solid.
like lasers to his chest for like 10 seconds.
It was
he had the
Okay, but then he threw it away. He threw it to the side, and then he got lasered again.
He had two of them.
Okay. Nice save. Nice. I was just testing you. Guy.
Yes. Come on. Go on.
All right. I'm just in the nitpicky mood. All right.
Yeah. I understand. I did that a lot.
It's okay. You want to go ahead and say something?
Well, it's just a little thing about the movie is and this ties into the climax of the movie when Barry winds back the clock, right? Mm. Which to me, that explosion, I don't know if any of you have seen the animated Flashpoint Paradox movie.
Mm-mm.
Have any of you seen it?
No, but I know what Flashpoint is because of the TV show they have.
Yeah, so brother, for you, it's Barry goes back in time.
I mean, I've heard about it.
Okay, yeah, right.
Yeah. You can still explain it though.
Barry goes back in time, saves his mom, and comes back to the present, and
everything's different.
Everything's ruined. It's just
worse, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's significantly worse.
Like Batman's dead, and his dad's actually Batman or something.
And
he
uses guns. And we're not talking about this movie, but never. I'm not gonna talk about that. At the end of that movie, and I think it's the end. There's an explosion, and Barry is seriously injured. Right?
Mm.
He has to just run. He has to just run. Right? His legs destroyed, but he's got to go. And that explosion at the end, when the mother boxes converged, reminded me of that scene.
Mm.
And he just, what happens in the Flashpoint Paradox is he runs and he goes back in time and he stops himself from saving his mom, which is a difficult decision for him. Mm. He does it. He has to do it. And so in this scene, to me, that's what I expected, right? I expected him to go back in time and change something, but it was a cool way to show.
Uh-oh.
That's too bad. But, okay, I think he cut out for a second. We'll wait till he comes back. But
I think what he was trying to say is that it was a cool way to show this ability of Flash to, like, travel back in time without him actually really changing anything. All he did was put himself in a place that he needed to be. He just changed where he was,
Yeah. And, Cameron, I don't know if you want to finish what you were going to say. Oh, did he unfreeze or not?
I think he unfroze for a second.
Yeah, he did unfreeze for a second. But we can go back real quick while he's getting back. I wanted to talk about the scene with Superman coming back to life.
Yeah.
Because
I actually do like this scene. I do like this scene. I just, and I like the action a lot in this scene. So I don't know what you're going to say.
Oh, I was going to say they did it better because I like what they did before they brought him back to life. Before they brought him back to life the first time, it was just kind of like, okay, well, we're gonna rush to bring him back to life. It was like zap bang, like he does the whole thing where he touches the water at the perfect time. He comes back to life. That's it.
Yeah.
This time it was like we get the flashback of Cyborg flash forward, into the future. Seemingly a very bad future. Cyborg sees this possibility, right? He sees it, and like he sees it, and then he says no, like.
And Flash says go.
And Flash says, "Oh, do you mean go?" Like I just thought that was cool. I just thought it was funny. Like it was good. I thought
that was cool.
I thought it was neat. And it introduces it's the first real wrinkle. You're like, wow, this is like what happened here? Like what happened in this future?
Yeah.
And I really like the start of that, and I like where they went with this towards the end of this film. So I thought that this added more to the movie, and I liked it. So
yeah.
I just want to mention that.
I do like the Superman fight scene. I just thought that the reasoning at the beginning was kind of cheap writing. I guess writing is one of my least favorite parts of this movie, but I did like that fight scene. I did like how Superman kind of like looks at Flash as he's like running. He's like,
oh yeah.
And that was in the original too, but yeah. Anyways, brother, what were you saying about the climax?
Yeah, I'll talk about that in a second, but I just want to ask a question to you guys. In the original movie, right? Superman looks over and he makes eye contact with Flash. And then the way I remember the original one is he just kind of clotheslines Flash and he just tumbles and it's done. Is that how it happens? Or is like Flash avoiding him and pushing off him and stuff in the original cut.
I think that was very similar.
Didn't they change it
because
this time?
What were you gonna say, Ryan? They changed it?
Change it a little bit this time? I thought it was.
That's what I thought.
I'm pretty sure it was a little.
I thought that
this time. I thought in the first one he kind of like he ran into like I don't think he hit him in the first one. I think he was too distracted and he like crashed and burned himself.
Yeah,
maybe.
And this one was actually a kind of conflict between the two.
And then he ended up plowing into Aquaman later on, which I thought was kind of.
Oh yeah.
Regardless, I thought that was a really cool action sequence. Probably my favorite action sequence in the movie. I would say.
Wow. What?
Yeah. So I don't know at what point I cut out. I'm between us. I hope
you said that when Flash was going back in time, you thought that it was cool that it was showing something. It was showing him doing something.
Oh yeah. He's when he goes back in time at the climax, right? That just resembled to me the Flashpoint, which I thought was kind of what was gonna something like similar to the way the time travels worked in any other Flash thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then it wasn't as weird as I thought. When looking back, it wasn't as weird as I thought it was because we get a demonstration of it when they bring Superman back. Because in the original cut, he just apparently times it perfectly to touch the box as soon as it hits the water, right? But in this one, he winds the clock back, even though milliseconds. He does wind it back a little bit.
Oh yeah. You mean earlier in the film? Oh, okay, yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah. So it kind of foreshadowed that he had that ability to like rewind the clock back.
And even before that, he says it to Batman. He says that when I go past the speed of light, weird things with time happen.
He's like bad thing. He's like, I'm not supposed to do it. Yeah.
So I just thought it was cool they foreshadowed that.
Mm-hmm. And I do think that a lot of the things that I like about this movie happened towards the end. Like I did like how in the climax, it came down to Flash like doing that and running back in time and like rebuilding the world. And I thought that was super cool, a super cool addition. And
I do also like how they address like the consequences that come with like running back into time, because he mentioned like you're not supposed to do it, right? Because if you do it, you go back in time, change something, it could create a whole domino effect of like differences that you don't know, like you don't know what can happen. So I think it's neat that they did that.
Like, and I think that creates it's cool that they do that, but it creates a little bit of a divide for people who have consumed anything about the Flash before, because I'm pretty sure it happens in the show. Like he does travel back in time and it messes with things, right? So people who have seen the show, people who have seen Flashpoint Paradox know that know why him traveling back in time is a bit of an issue, and they mention that's an issue, but they don't go into specifics, probably with constraints of time.
I mean, I'm glad that they don't, but that's cool. Like for people who do know the.
Yes, exactly. For people who do know something about it, it's cool that they bring it up.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you guys have any final thoughts on this kind of scene, but I was gonna kind of move forward in this a little bit. Connor, would you want to say something?
No, I think we can move forward. We can talk about. Okay, go. Well, I was just gonna. I don't know if there's anything you want to talk about, Ryan, but once Cameron says what he's gonna say, I feel like maybe we could move on towards the the epilogue scenes.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. I really want to talk about those two, so this will be quick. I just wrote a note about this. I thought it was so in character. Like our introduction to Flash seems pretty in character to me, right? It just makes sense. But also before the final fight, like we were making fun of Wonder Woman like pulling out her sword and Batman throwing Aquaman his trident. Like that's just weird. But the one thing that made sense in that scene was Barry doing like Tai Chi or yoga.
Oh yeah, that actually made sense.
Because it slows down his mind, right?
Yeah.
I thought that was like a little cool detail to add. And although it's not important to the film really at all, I thought that it gave that scene a little bit of realism. Even though
I like that scene. I mean, I like that shot. The other parts.
So you can move on. I just wanted to talk.
That's a good point. Yeah. But so I mean, moving on to perhaps, to me at least, the most interesting part of this movie, really this last half hour here, which is the epilogue, I guess, right? It was really like 25, 30 minutes, right? And either of you, I don't know where you want to start with this, but I suppose we can kind of start with, what I don't know.
I
We can
think we
kind
could start with the characters, right?
Hmm?
The characters we see in the future
The flash
apocalypse.
forward. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't sure if you wanted to start with
Oh,
the introduction to Deathstroke at all, but
yeah, let's do the Deathstroke, and then let's also talk about. I don't know if we have anything else to say about the Martian Manhunter visiting Bruce or anything like that, but
not really. I have stuff to say about the Vision before he saw the Martian Manhunter, though.
Yeah, I'm with
But
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, we can talk about Deathstroke briefly. I don't know, having Lex Luthor in this. I don't know what the like. I get he's a major character, right, in these other like in the universe, right? But I don't know what the point of having him there was. Like, it's like, okay, like I don't know.
I
Either
Kyle.
like, do either of you want
well, I'm just gonna say really quickly that I like Lex Luthor as a villain a lot more than Steppenwolf personally.
to? Are you kidding me?
Dude, Lex Luthor's
Oh, yeah.
actually a person who's like can manipulate the world that we understand, and it's a lot more intriguing in terms of like
I agree,
I
but
don't know.
what he did at the end of Batman vs Superman, like just pawn off to a monster, like
Honestly, dude, I'm just disregarding Batman vs Superman. I'm just talking about like what I would want to see in a movie. I want to see
Okay.
Lex Luthor, you know? So,
okay.
Yeah, that's in the I don't know if it's explicitly said in the original cut, but the original cut alludes to an Injustice League that Lex Luthor is forming, which in the comics is comprised of the main villains of the people in the Justice League, and it's kind of weird. It's a weird concept, but that's what it seemed like was happening, and I liked that they took a different turn in this, like hiring Deathstroke to kill Batman. That makes sense.
That's interesting. It makes you want to see a Batman movie with
Which is
funny. It's funny. I don't know if either of you know this, but in comics, does Deathstroke really like Batman's enemy? Is that what it is? Because I've watched too much.
No.
I've watched too much Arrow TV to think of Deathstroke as Batman's enemy. I just think of him as the enemy of the Green Arrow. So I don't know like what the actual background is.
He's
not really a Batman villain. I don't feel like.
Okay.
The thing is, he's a mercenary, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is in Arrow, but he does go through training under Ra's al Ghul as Batman does. So they do have a connection.
No, not in Arrow. That's funny.
But not that exclusive.
Interesting, because in Arrow he's just like a specially trained. He's trained by someone else. But
Ra's al Ghul is in Arrow, isn't he?
Yes,
Okay.
and the Green Arrow is trained by him, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And other people are. But yeah. I mean I guess that is interesting.
You know, if I say one more thing
go
about
ahead.
that. I understand both of your guys' points of view on Lex Luthor as a character in this universe, but Jesse Eisenberg's portrayal of him, I think, is astounding. It's one of the better castings for me within this film.
I agree with that.
Right up there with Henry Cavill, I think.
Which is surprising given what Jesse Eisenberg normally does, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think he did fantastic. I just didn't like what they did with him at the end of that other movie. I do agree, though. I think he's very good as well. But really talking about, I wanted to get into this full, like, what this alternate sort of universe or reality.
Oh, yes.
And I wanted to get into this, okay? I wanted to get into this because, to me, this was really cool, and this makes me want them to be able to do another movie because even we know it's not actually going to happen. We know that the Flash goes back and warns them, and that ends up not happening. But it's really cool to me. It's really cool to me that we see this, and we don't really know why, right? We don't really know why. We obviously insinuate that Darkseid has come back and sort of won-ish.
In the same way that Thanos kind of has won.
Yes.
Infinity War.
And, Superman's working with him, right? It seems with him. It ends up being for him, but with
Superman seems to be under the influence that Darkseid can like
the anti-life
exert, that he can exert over like all living beings that he dominates. You know,
the anti-life equation. Right? I think it's assumption that he obtained that, right? But it's cool seeing this. And before I get into what they were going to do, I just wanted to talk about what they actually did, because I really think, and I want to talk about Jared Leto's Joker specifically to me, because I think that he's not as bad as people said he was. And I think that given the opportunity with a less gangster style Joker, I think that he actually is a pretty solid Joker. I really do. Like this
Remember
Joker
what
isn't that bad.
Yes.
In my opinion.
Remember what I said about the dialogue in this film?
Yes.
This conversation between Batman and the Joker at the end here made me question whether I was watching the same screenwriter that had written the rest of the movie.
Yeah, he did really. It was good, wasn't it?
It was the best scene in terms of like conversation and dialogue in the entire film.
That's fantastic.
Straight up.
Yeah, it was awesome. I don't know, Cameron, if you have anything to say about.
Well, it's I have a lot to talk about with this scene, but in terms of that dialogue, with what's in the film, one of the things that like struck me was in Batman vs Superman, we see what looks like a Robin suit, right? With something about a
I wanted to bring this up. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's like ha ha ha, like Batman, good day, whatever, you know. Like,
yeah, right? And in this final scene, he explicitly says he killed Jason Todd. Like, this is admitting that in this universe, Jason Todd died by the Joker's hand, which opens the possibility for
he killed Robin, basically, for people who don't know what that means.
Yeah, the second Robin.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which opens the possibility for Red Hood, although based on the fact that there's no sequels, I don't know how that'll ever happen.
Yeah. But this is a Batman interacting with a Joker who has killed Robin.
Yeah.
And they're working together. So
this shows the willpower of Batman.
And that's why he's like, I will kill you. That's why he's so like intense about it, you know.
Joker's just laughing.
What demonstrates that is that in the Injustice universe, this shouldn't be much of a spoiler for anyone who hasn't seen it. It happens very early on. Superman, when Lois dies, Superman breaks and kills Joker. He rips the Joker's heart out. That's what happens. And that just shows the amount of control that Batman has, because he's been through some crazy stuff. And at this point in the comics, when the Joker kills the second Robin, he's also he's also paralyzed Batgirl. So I'm not saying that's how it is in this universe, but if it is, he's showing crazy amounts of self-control to not kill the Joker right then and there. And it's you just gotta admire that.
And you can see how manipulative this Joker is too.
Yeah.
Which I really like.
Yeah. But like, I don't know. I just think that given opportunity, Jared Leto could have been a pretty solid Joker, at least in this universe, in this way that he was portrayed here. I don't know. I think he could have been pretty solid.
Yeah.
In my opinion. What'd you say?
I think he got too much hate for
This is one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie, this ending scene here.
Yeah, I agree. Because then, we also get, it's insinuated that Wonder Woman's dead, right? That Wonder Woman's dead. Aquaman, also dead. We get, I think that girl from Aquaman, she's really angry.
Mira?
Yeah, she's really angry that Aquaman died. Yeah, so she's working with them. You Deathstroke working with them as well, which, he wanted to kill Batman just when we saw him in the present.
Yeah,
that's like a big turn of events.
People even more.
Yeah.
That knowing what happened.
Yeah, and the Flash is there as well.
How come they aren't under the anti-life equation?
Because they haven't found them yet, I don't think.
It's not really clear. And brother, I'm not sure about this, but there's a possibility that Superman himself might not be under the effects of the anti-life equation, right? Maybe he's because the Joker makes a point about him losing Lois, right? And
he blamed
I
Batman.
guess as a viewer, you understand that as, okay, maybe the anti-life equation is like Darkseid used that opening to use the anti-life equation on Superman. But maybe Superman is just that desperate at that point. That's why I brought up Injustice previously, because maybe he's at that breaking point where the anti-life equation isn't necessary.
But I think because Darkseid is involved in this universe, that would be the
that would be my reasoning for them not being under the influence of maybe there is
no anti-life equation at this point.
Yeah,
Darkseid is still looking for it.
But
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, it's clear, right, that the Flash he ends up going back in time to tell Batman and other people what's been happening. But what's interesting to me now is after seeing this, and you see Superman comes at the end, right? He finds them, and right, is that how it ends? Right, Superman's just there,
He just drops down.
and that's kind of it.
And then he wakes up. Yeah.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me is what they were going to do and what actually had happened previous to this. So my understanding of what Zack Snyder said is what they had happened was Darkseid showed up, right? Superman was fighting him, everyone was fighting him, and Superman trusted Batman to protect Lois.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening is
someone told Lex Luthor tells Darkseid that Lois is Superman's weakness or something like that.
And Lois ends up dying, and Batman ends up like watching her die. Like he could have. The understanding is like he could have like stepped in front of the shot and he didn't, and she died, and
or whatever. Somehow he could have saved her.
Somehow he could have saved her. And basically, what ended up happening is like Superman found out this happened, and then like he couldn't like resist Darkseid. He either became like
his frustration allowed him to be susceptible or something.
Either
like
whether the interlife equation had a factor or not, right? So that's what ended up happening, and then like he just kind of went nuts and ended up killing all of them.
So they have to send a flashback.
Yeah, trying to hunt them down and everything. So yeah, I found that really interesting. And apparently, what he was going to end up having Batman do was, since the Flash kept warning him, like Batman was going to sacrifice, like he was going to die and
sacrifice himself. Yeah.
Yeah. So Lois
and
could
then
survive. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that and like what that would have been like, or what, just in general.
I don't know if you can go ahead, Connor. I don't know what you have to say.
Okay. I think that would have been an interesting story to see. I just think they set themselves up so badly, like coming into the Justice League movie.
Yes.
And it's hard to look at this movie in a bubble, right? But when you do, it's like, it's just such a mess, Yeah. And there's and like be really awesome, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can kind of see this with what Zack Snyder was planning. But I think it just goes to show the difficulty of creating film, right? That things happen and they don't always happen the way that you want them to. So, I mean, they just dealt the hand they were given, because Zack Snyder's daughter, she committed suicide, and that was like what led to all these things happening. And I think, when you are given the freedom to do whatever you want with a cut, like he was with this, you can get a lot of cool stuff, but the director also needs to be reined in a little bit sometimes. And I think that's the biggest problem with this film. But I would have liked to see this film go through the regular cuts that a normal movie does and gotten this film released in the theater. Maybe with a little bit of cleaning up, a little bit of rewriting some dialogue and some scenes and stuff. And maybe even with another movie to preface this, like maybe you even have a movie like Cyborg and The Flash, and you introduce them both in the same movie and have them like meet together and like do something like that. But
that'd be interesting.
That would have been a cool world to live in, but that's not what we got. So.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
One of the most impactful things to me is, especially with them coming out, Zack Snyder coming out with what happens, and or he gives a general idea of what happens, and that Lois ends up dying, right? And with that being stated in the film, it gives a lot more context to Barry's warning in Batman vs Superman, because in the original Justice League, you look at it as, oh, that's why Batman brings Lois Lane. Lois Lane is the way they stop Superman from just going berserk, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least that's the way I understood. I don't know if that's how everyone saw it. That's the way I recognized it. And now going forward, you see that Lois Lane is a much bigger part of the picture.
And then Batman's like, no, I think it's more than that. It's something darker or something like
that. Yeah, right. Which is, again, the dialogue was a bit forced.
Yeah, it's a bit weird, but it's
clear, right?
Yeah. Also, how does Batman have these premonitions?
I don't. Maybe something about the contact with the mother box.
Maybe, because how did Cyborg have it as well? Yeah.
Well, Cyborg was like in contact with the mother boxes, so I don't know.
I don't know.
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
to me, it doesn't matter how. It doesn't matter that much how it happened. I enjoyed watching it happen.
Yeah, I guess.
It doesn't matter how,
And-
Connor, it just happened.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
well, if this was released in the theaters, I would have liked to have seen a little bit less of this future land, because I think it would have
Been more impactful.
just give us a little bit enough to keep us interested. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fair.
So,
Well,
because
if
that
that's the
scene
case,
was pretty
Connor-
long for a dream scene.
It was
pretty
really long. It was really long.
Well, I think that was the point. I think because we see Cyborg Flash forward to it already, and I think maybe it's kind of making the audience think this might not be a dream because it goes on for so long. This might be the reality.
Well,
And then
yeah, but I also think that the reason he made it that long was because, he knows that this is not going to continue, right? He knows this universe isn't. So he's just trying to give us a little taste of what he would have done in the future,
Yeah.
Mm.
And since you didn't like that, how long that scene was, you might want to plug your ears while I talk about something they took out of it, actually. But the Joker, there's a part of that scene where the Joker was they mentioned Harley Quinn dying, right?
Yes,
and
they
Batman
do.
made that promise to her. What they exclude is Joker makes a comment about, it's something like, which one do you think screamed louder, the boy or the girl? And it shows how crazy and manipulative Jared Leto's Joker is, because he's talking about Jason Todd and Harley Quinn. So second Robin and Harley Quinn, who both die in Batman's arms, and he can't do anything to stop it. And it's just showing how, even with all this going on, the Joker's going to mess with the Batman whenever he gets the chance. Right? Like,
Yeah.
and
he's playing on his guilt as well, right? Right? Because it happens with multiple people. Lois Lane in this, right? And then Harley Quinn and
and which is interesting, given that in this movie he was dealing with a lot of guilt over Superman's death as well.
Well, I think it's even worse, because that's how the whole Batman thing begins. It's not necessarily guilt, but his parents die, right? Then he loses the first Robin, not to death, but just he loses him as a ally, pretty much.
Yeah.
Then
Which I don't know if they're gonna they would have addressed that.
But then the second Robin dies, Harley Quinn dies in his arms, which I know Harley Quinn is seen as a villain or whatever, but Batman doesn't kill, and he doesn't leave people to die either. And so it's that Superman dies on his watch, and then Lois Lane dies on his watch. So there's just a lot of guilt there, and the Joker pokes at it consistently.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think this dialogue was a lot better written, and this was probably one of my favorite scenes, at least top 3 scenes of this movie for me personally. I don't know about you, Ryan.
Yeah, no, I thought it was really neat, and we can, we have had quite the podcast here, so we can wrap this up in just a second. But I'm just gonna kind of wrap up what I want to say by saying, this is one of my favorite parts of the movie, if not the favorite, because it creates such a desire to want to see more, that if I'm looking at this movie through the lens of like, all right, they're going to make more of these, like this makes me want to watch more. And while this whole universe has its problems, right? We've talked about it at length, that I don't need to go into it again. It has its problems, but if they were to set it up this way, like, I'm interested. Like, this is going to get me to watch the next couple movies if they were to make more about these characters. Like, this would be really, really interesting to watch. Watch Batman end up sacrificing himself to save the world, basically, to keep Superman from going insane and just going off his rocker and doing his own thing. I just think that would be a really interesting movie to watch. Both see the disastrous future and the changed present with Batman, obviously saving Lois in the new present, I suppose. It'd be really neat.
I think that, and now that we know that that's what the plan would have been, that even just confirms further that that's not going to happen, right? Because now we know the story, right? There's no surprise in what would actually happen there. I don't know. But do you mind if I give my closing thoughts, Ryan? Or,
yeah, we can all go ahead and do that right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, as you can probably tell, I played devil's advocate, I feel like, a lot during this podcast.
Yes, you did. I appreciate it.
No, but yeah, I mean, I guess as a film major, just looking at this as a movie, right, there were just a lot of things that bothered me. The dialogue bothered me a lot. Some of the overall plot themes things like, you know, the villain's goal and like how he's going about his goal with like these mother boxes fusing and stuff. That wasn't my favorite. The sheer amount of information that they have to cram in makes the pacing like really wonky, especially at the beginning. But I do like the scenes where we get to know the characters more, and I think the character arcs are some of my favorite parts of the movie. So it's like that's one of the biggest positives. And then another one of the positives is you know, the visuals and the music. Those things I really liked as well. But yeah, I just really struggled with some of those other things in the movie, and I think that while it is better than the original Justice League, you know, it's just it's still a mess in my opinion. It still has a lot of problems, and I would be interested in seeing this universe, but I just wish they had gone about it in a different way.
Yeah.
You know, and if I just giving this movie a rating, like in a little bubble of like what I would give it, I would probably just give this movie a 70%. Yeah.
Wow, I guess I think too highly of this movie. Cameron, do you want to go ahead and give what your final thoughts? What do you think of this? Put a number on it.
So yeah, Connor, I'm gonna agree with you. You did play a bit of devil's advocate, but I quite enjoyed that. It gave me put me in a position where I kind of be a mediator between you and Ryan. You're a film major. You're going into it with that point of view, and Ryan, you're a consumer of films. Not that you're not, Connor, but like that's the different.
Yeah, different perspectives.
Yeah. The way that I'm looking at it is very like, is this a good film for me to watch this film? You know,
More of course.
I totally agree. And so, growing up with Connor, I've been able to be the consumer that Ryan is, but also understand where Connor's coming from. And so, although the fan service may have been overdone a little bit, it was a director's cut, and you got to understand that he's going to put in whatever he can. The dialogue was a bit rough around the edges sometimes, and aside from the Wonder Woman theme, I enjoyed the music. I think they did a good job there, which, as I said before, makes or breaks a movie a lot of the time. And the visual aspects, they did a really good job, especially with the character design of Desaad, Steppenwolf, and Darkseid. Those were all great. I had an issue with not cohesion, but the way the story ran because of the time and because they had to introduce so many characters. Although I loved the way that characters were introduced. I love that Cyborg and Flash got a little bit of backstory going into this movie. And I see the struggle that they went through. And on that, the original Justice League movie was under a lot of scrutiny, I think, because Zack Snyder they didn't use what Zack Snyder wanted. Mm. And so it got a little bit of unnecessary hate, which means I looked at it a bit more negatively than I probably should have, which means going into this movie, my outlook was probably a bit more positive than it would have been if this had been the original release, which I know it's not going to happen, but I would love to see the release of this movie cut down like a normal film, like a regular film. And I think if that could happen, we would be open to a really cool cinematic universe. But it's not going to happen. But overall, I'd probably give the movie 80%. I think I put it under a little less scrutiny than Connor did. And I enjoyed the fan service of like Martian Manhunter and the Green Lanterns, even though they didn't show up as much as I wanted than you guys did. So I'm going to go with 80%.
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, I suppose I have a more positive outlook on these kind of movies than some other people, than most people. And I'm not gonna go into detail because look, I've gone into insane detail in this podcast. But for me, I think this universe needed more time. They messed up real bad with what they wanted to do. They didn't really take their time. They tried to rush into it. You can't do that. You cannot do that if you're building a big universe like this. You need to take time. You need to just have a coherent plan of how many movies you need to provide the adequate background for these characters going into a major culmination film like this. You just do. You just need that. And they didn't have that, at least not in my opinion. So that obviously created an issue just going into this movie. But this movie in general, look, it's a director's cut. You're right. They're going to put everything they can in here that they want because they want to tell their whole story. And I think that I really like comparing to the original, I really like the addition of the character development for some of the secondary characters, Flash, Cyborg. I also, I liked this alternate universe future that we got to see. I thought that was really, really cool. But I thought, the music was solid, but I thought some of it was a little weird. Obviously the Wonder Woman theme. I think some stuff could have been, I just think the Lois stuff was a little unnecessary. I think that some of the dialogue was messy. I still don't love some of the acting choices for some of these roles. I still think they could have been better, even though the dialogue wasn't great, I know, but I still think they could have chosen some better actors or actresses. I don't know. I mean, that pretty much kind of gets the general gist of what I think about this. But if I had to put a number on it, just to summarize real quick, I would give the first one like a C minus. This one I'll probably go with like an 82. I'll go a little higher than you, Cameron. I think that it's a little bit. I think that it's a good enough movie that it gets a B minus. I just think it's a good enough movie that it gets a B minus. So I'll give it an 82, better than both of you. I think that just about does it. I don't know if any of you have any final thoughts, but if you don't, I can wrap this up. Connor?
I do have one final thought, which is, I feel like we're pretty positive podcast, right? We give movies like, generous ratings higher than, the general consensus is. Like,
that's
for
true.
example, right? If you go on the IMDb top 250, as I'm doing right now, okay? If you go there, you'll see that Shawshank Redemption is number 1 with an average rating of 9.2, right? That's the highest average rating.
It's unbelievable.
Which is 92% essentially, right? Which is really high. There's one film that's 9.1, The Godfather, and then 2 films that are 9.0, The Godfather Part 2 and The Dark Knight, right? Every other film is 8.9 or lower, right? And
we're more the Rotten Tomatoes, okay?
Right? Okay. Once you get past number 26, everything is 8.5 or lower, okay? So only 26 movies have a higher than 8.5 on IMDb, right? Keep that in mind. I feel like for us, that's around the average rating of our films, right? So we're more generous than the general population. That's my point, right? This film.
Okay.
What do you think this film has on IMDb?
This film, 6.5.
It's really original.
This Zack Snyder's Justice League, the director's cut.
Mid to high sixes.
I think it's anywhere from like 68 to 72.
Yeah.
Zack Snyder's Justice League is in IMDb's top 250 with an average rating of 8.1.
Oh, wow. I'm just such a good rater.
8.1. No, listen. This is the number 184 highest rated film in all of film history, okay? This mess. And
whoa.
Okay, Ryan, you can't say it's not a mess. There's a lot going on here.
They have it higher than Gone Girl, than Hacksaw Ridge, okay?
I'm not going to get too into it, but you need. I think context is important. But yes, it's obviously not as good. It's not.
It's higher than How to Train Your Dragon. It's higher than Ford versus Ferrari.
It's not top 185 all time. I agree. It's not top.
It's higher than 12 Years a Slave.
Okay,
it's higher than Mad Max Fury Road. I could go on. All right.
I understand your point, and I think from
people listen. We need to fix this, okay? We need to drag this down to at least a 7.
The final consensus that we have is IMDb just must love Zack Snyder. That's basically all there is.
I guess so too.
I don't really know,
but I just think that's crazy. But obviously, I think it's influenced by the fact that the people who are going out of their way to see this movie are the people who want to see this movie and the people who want to see this universe and support this type of movie, right? So.
100%. Yeah. I agree. But
I just was very surprised by that, so I wanted to point that out.
No, I'm glad you pointed that out. But it's been a really good podcast. I'm glad we got to have a guest on. Thank you for coming on. It's been really fun. And
yes, we got a lot of good insight, I think.
Yes, we did. I think it was really helpful, and we definitely had. It's nice to have a third perspective, especially on a movie like this, a massive movie like this. But that just about does it. So I think that'll be it. Connor and I will debate about maybe splitting this into 2 podcasts.
We might split this into 2 podcasts.
I think that's probably the plan at this point. But if that's the case, then we'll be back again though next week with another podcast. If it's split into 2, we'll still be back with another one next week. So we'll see you next week and hope you enjoyed.
See ya.
See ya.